We all know about introverts and extroverts. Introverts recharge alone. Extroverts thrive in crowds. For over a century, psychologists have told us these are the two fundamental ways humans relate to the world. But what if I told you that scientists have just discovered a third personality type that changes everything we thought we knew about human nature? Meet the Otrovert, a personality type so unique, so fundamentally different from what we've been taught, that it might just explain why millions of people have never felt like they truly fit into either category. And here's the most mind-bending part. You might be one of them and not even know it. Today, we're diving deep into this groundbreaking discovery that's reshaping how we understand personality, relationships, and what it really means to be human in the modern world. The story of Otroverts begins with Dr. Rami Kaminsky, a New York-based psychiatrist who spent years feeling like what he calls a perpetual outsider. Despite being socially skilled and forming meaningful relationships, Dr. Kaminsky noticed something peculiar about himself and many of his patients. They didn't quite fit the traditional introvert-extrovert model. For decades, we've imagined personality as existing on a spectrum. On one end, you have introverts, people who turn inward, who recharge in solitude, who prefer deep conversations over small talk. On the other end, extroverts, people who turn outward, who gain energy from social interaction, who love being the center of attention. But Dr. Kaminsky observed something fascinating. Some people don't turn inward like introverts, and they don't turn outward like extroverts. Instead, they turn in a completely different direction, elsewhere. They turn towards something else entirely: independence, originality, and authentic self-expression. This is where the term Otrovert comes from. Otro is Spanish for other, and vertere is Latin for to turn. Otroverts are people who turn toward otherness, toward being fundamentally different, toward refusing to conform to group expectations, toward charting their own unique course through life, as Dr. Kaminsky puts it. Otroverts are outsiders who enrich the world. Much like left-handed people navigating a right-handed world, they bring fresh perspectives, resist subtle pressures to conform, and model the radical idea that fulfillment doesn't have to come from collective validation. So what exactly makes someone an Otrovert? Let's break down the core characteristics that define this fascinating personality type. First, and most importantly, Otroverts possess deep emotional independence. Unlike introverts who might withdraw from social situations because they find them draining, or extroverts who seek out groups for validation and energy, Otroverts simply don't anchor their identity in social groups at all. They're not antisocial, far from it. Otroverts are typically empathetic, friendly, and capable of forming loving relationships. They can appear gregarious, outgoing, and even commanding in social situations. But here's the key difference: they don't need group belonging to feel complete. Second, Otroverts prioritize authenticity over conformity. While others might adjust their behavior to fit in with different groups, Otroverts remain consistently themselves regardless of the social context. They're guided not by labels or group expectations, but by their own internal compass of what feels genuine and true. This manifests in fascinating ways. An Otrovert might politely decline team-building activities not because they're shy, but because forced group bonding feels inauthentic to them. They might prefer one-on-one coffee meetings over office parties not from social anxiety, but because shallow group dynamics don't align with their preference for meaningful connection. Third, Otroverts move fluidly between social and solitary spaces. Unlike introverts who primarily prefer solitude or extroverts who primarily seek company, Otroverts are comfortable in both settings but don't define themselves by either. They might enjoy a lively dinner party one night and spend the entire next day in complete solitude, and both feel equally natural and energizing. Finally, Otroverts are characterized by their originality and independence of thought. They're not contrarian for the sake of being different, but they naturally see things from unique angles. They question assumptions, challenge conventional wisdom, and often come up with creative solutions precisely because they're not constrained by groupthink. As Dr. Kaminsky notes, they resist the subtle pressure to conform and consistently offer fresh perspectives that others might miss. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute, isn't this just another term for ambivert? It's a natural question, but the answer reveals something crucial about how we understand personality. Ambiverts are people who balance between introversion and extroversion. They can gain energy from social situations like extroverts, but also from quiet reflection like introverts. They're essentially the middle ground on the traditional personality spectrum, sometimes social, sometimes solitary, but always operating within the established introvert-extrovert framework. Otroverts, however, aren't on this spectrum at all. They've stepped off the traditional continuum entirely. While ambiverts balance between existing personality types, Otroverts represent something fundamentally new, a personality type defined not by how much they love or avoid people, but by their relationship to belonging itself. Here's the crucial distinction. Ambiverts still seek some form of group belonging and validation. They just balance their social needs more evenly. Otroverts, by contrast, feel no sense of belonging to any group. They're not balancing social energy. They're operating from a completely different paradigm altogether. Think of it this way. An ambivert might sometimes prefer small gatherings and sometimes large parties, depending on their mood and energy level. An Otrovert might enjoy both small and large gatherings when they choose to attend, but their enjoyment comes from authentic connection or interesting conversation, not from group membership or social validation. The difference is subtle but profound. Ambiverts are working within the existing social-emotional system, just balancing their needs differently. Otroverts have essentially created their own system, one based on authenticity, independence, and genuine connection rather than group dynamics and social belonging. To really understand Otroverts, let's look at how this personality type shows up in real life. These examples might feel surprisingly familiar. In the workplace, an Otrovert might be the person who performs excellently in meetings, contributes valuable insights, and collaborates effectively with colleagues, but never joins the office softball team or attends happy hour. It's not that they dislike their coworkers. They simply don't feel the need to extend work. Relationships into social group activities. They might be the one who suggests innovative solutions because they're not constrained by how we've always done things, while others are influenced by office politics and group dynamics. Otroverts focus on what actually makes sense and works best. At parties or social gatherings, Otroverts can be surprisingly engaging. They're often skilled conversationalists who can connect with anyone, but you'll rarely find them in the center of a large group or leading group activities. Instead, they gravitate toward one-on-one or small group conversations where genuine connection is possible. They might be the person who ends up in the kitchen having a fascinating discussion with someone they just met, completely oblivious to the group games happening in the living room. It's not social anxiety, it's preference for authentic interaction over performative socializing. In relationships, Otroverts can be incredible partners and friends because they're not trying to fulfill some social role or meet group expectations. They're present and authentic, but they also maintain their independence. They love deeply, but don't lose themselves in relationships. This can sometimes be misunderstood. A partner might wonder why their Otrovert significant other doesn't want to join couples game night or why they need solo time even in a happy relationship. It's not rejection. It's simply how Otroverts maintain their authentic selves. Perhaps most importantly, Otroverts make decisions based on their own values and judgment rather than group consensus or social pressure. They're the ones who might choose an unconventional career path, live in an unexpected place, or make lifestyle choices that don't fit typical molds, not to be rebellious, but because they genuinely march to the beat of their own drum. They're often early adopters of new ideas or trends because they're not waiting for social validation to pursue what interests them. They trust their own judgment more than popular opinion. The key insight is that Otroverts aren't rebelling against group norms or trying to be different for its own sake. They're simply operating from a fundamentally different paradigm, one where belonging to groups isn't a primary source of identity, validation, or decision-making. Understanding the psychology behind Otroversion helps explain why this personality type has been overlooked for so long and why it's so important to recognize? Now, traditional personality psychology has been built around the idea that humans are fundamentally social creatures who define themselves through group membership and social relationships. From evolutionary psychology to social identity theory, most models assume that belonging to groups is a basic human need, but Otroverts challenge this assumption. They demonstrate that it's possible to be psychologically healthy, emotionally stable, and socially skilled without needing group belonging as a primary source of identity or validation. Dr. Kaminsky's research reveals that Otroverts are typically neurotypical, friendly, curious, well-adjusted, and often popular. They just resist being pressured into group activities. This isn't a disorder or deficiency. It's simply a different way of being human. From a neurological perspective, Otroverts seem to have different patterns of social reward processing. While most people get dopamine hits from group acceptance and belonging, Otroverts get their primary satisfaction from authentic self-expression and genuine individual connections. This means their brains are literally wired differently when it comes to social motivation. They're not lacking social skills or avoiding groups due to anxiety. They simply don't find group membership inherently rewarding in the same way. Most people do. This becomes even more interesting when we consider cultural context. In our increasingly connected world, where social media pressures us to constantly display group memberships and tribal affiliations, Otroverts represent a fascinating counter-trend. They're the people who might have active social media accounts, but don't feel the need to constantly signal their belonging to various groups or movements. In many ways, Otroverts model what emotional independence looks like in an age of social dependence. They show us that it's possible to be caring, connected, and contributing members of society without needing constant group validation or social media affirmation. From a developmental perspective, Otrovert children often show these traits early. They might be popular and well-liked but prefer solo activities or one-on-one friendships over group play. In adolescence, when peer group belonging becomes critically important for most teenagers, Otrovert teens often maintain their independence, which can sometimes be misunderstood by parents and teachers. It's crucial to understand that this isn't about being antisocial or having attachment issues. Otroverts form deep, meaningful relationships. They just don't need group membership to feel complete or secure. They're emotionally independent while remaining socially connected. Dr. Kaminsky titled his book, "The Gift of Not Belonging," and this phrase captures something profound about the Otrovert experience. What might initially seem like a disadvantage, not feeling the need to belong to groups, actually becomes a superpower in many contexts. First, Otroverts are often highly innovative because they're not constrained by group consensus or conventional thinking. History is filled with Otroverts who made breakthrough discoveries or created revolutionary art precisely because they weren't trying to fit in with existing schools of thought or artistic movements. Think about the greatest innovators in human history. Many of them probably would have tested as Otroverts. They saw things differently, not because they were trying to be contrarian, but because they weren't influenced by groupthink or social pressure to conform to existing paradigms. Second, when Otroverts do take leadership roles, they often excel because they lead from authenticity rather than trying to fulfill group expectations of what a leader should be. They're not performing leadership. They're simply being themselves in a leadership context. This can be incredibly powerful because people can sense authenticity. Otrovert leaders often inspire loyalty, not through charisma or group manipulation, but through consistent, genuine behavior that people trust and respect. Third, Otroverts often demonstrate remarkable emotional stability because their self-worth isn't dependent on group acceptance or social validation. While others might experience emotional roller coasters based on social feedback, Otroverts maintain more consistent emotional equilibrium. This doesn't mean they don't care about others' opinions, but those opinions don't determine their fundamental sense of self-worth. This emotional independence can be incredibly valuable in both personal and professional contexts. Fourth, because Otroverts aren't spreading their emotional energy across multiple group memberships, they often form incredibly deep, meaningful one-on-one relationships. They have the emotional bandwidth for authentic connection because they're not managing complex group dynamics. They're Friendships and romantic relationships often have a quality of authenticity and depth that can be rare in our socially complex world. They're present and genuine because they're not trying to balance multiple group identities or social personas. On a broader level, Otroverts provide something invaluable to society. They serve as a check against groupthink, offer fresh perspectives, and model the possibility of living authentically in a world that often pressures conformity. They remind us that there are multiple ways to be human, to contribute and to find fulfillment. As Dr. Kaminsky puts it, they're outsiders who enrich the world, bringing diversity of thought, emotional independence, and authentic self-expression to a world that desperately needs these qualities. Of course, being an Otrovert isn't always easy. In a world designed around group belonging and social conformity, Otroverts can face unique challenges that are important to understand. The biggest challenge is often misunderstanding. Because Otroversion is such a new concept, Otroverts are frequently mislabeled as antisocial, aloof, or having commitment issues. People might interpret their independence as rejection or their authenticity as rudeness. In workplace settings, an Otrovert's reluctance to participate in team-building exercises might be seen as lack of team spirit rather than a different approach to collaboration. In romantic relationships, their need for independence might be misinterpreted as emotional unavailability. Modern society puts enormous pressure on everyone to demonstrate group belonging. From social media to networking events to community involvement, we're constantly expected to show our affiliations and tribal memberships. For Otroverts, this can feel exhausting and inauthentic. They might feel pressure to join groups they don't care about, attend events that drain them, or perform social behaviors that feel fake, all because society assumes that group participation equals good citizenship or professional success. In many career paths, advancement is tied to networking, group leadership, and social visibility. Otroverts who excel at their actual work might be overlooked for promotions because they don't play the social game or build the right group connections. This is particularly challenging in fields like sales, marketing, or politics, where group dynamics and social performance are often valued over individual competence or authentic contribution. Perhaps most frustratingly, Otroverts are often assumed to be lonely or lacking in social connection. In reality, many Otroverts have rich, fulfilling social lives. They just structure them differently. The assumption that not belonging to groups equals social isolation can be hurtful and inaccurate. The truth is that Otroverts often experience deep satisfaction from their authentic relationships and independent pursuits. They're not missing out on group belonging, they simply don't need it for fulfillment. So how do you know if you might be an Otrovert? Let's explore some key indicators that go beyond simple introversion or extroversion. Ask yourself, do you feel comfortable in social situations but rarely feel the need to belong to social groups? Can you enjoy parties and gatherings while remaining emotionally independent from the group dynamic? Do you make decisions based on your own values and judgment rather than seeking group consensus? When you're in a relationship or friendship, do you maintain your individual identity rather than blending into a we identity? Do you find yourself naturally questioning conventional wisdom, not to be rebellious, but because you genuinely see things differently? Are you comfortable being the only person who thinks or feels a certain way about something? In professional settings, do you collaborate well but prefer to work independently? Do you contribute valuable ideas in meetings but rarely join office social groups or activities? Looking at your social media behavior, do you engage with individual posts and comments but rarely share content that signals group membership or tribal affiliation? Do you have online presence but don't feel the need to constantly display your social connections? In relationships, are you loving and committed but also fiercely protective of your independence and individual interests? Do you prefer deep one-on-one conversations over group discussions? Most importantly, where do you get your energy and validation? If it comes primarily from authentic self-expression, meaningful individual connections, and personal integrity rather than group acceptance or social belonging, you might be an Otrovert. Remember, being an Otrovert isn't about disliking people or being antisocial. Otroverts are typically empathetic, friendly, and capable of loving relationships. The key difference is that they don't anchor their identity in group membership or seek validation through social belonging. It's also worth noting that you can have Otrovert traits without being a complete Otrovert. Personality is complex, and many people might recognize some of these patterns in themselves while still having strong needs for group belonging in certain contexts. If these descriptions resonate with you, there's nothing wrong with you, and you're not missing some crucial human experience. You might simply be wired differently, and that difference can be a tremendous gift both to yourself and to the world around. You understanding Otroversion has profound implications that extend far beyond individual personality assessment. This discovery could reshape how we structure everything from education to workplace culture to social policy. In education, recognizing Otrovert students could revolutionize how we approach learning and development. Instead of forcing all students into group projects and collaborative learning models, we might create more space for independent exploration and individual expression. Otrovert students aren't antisocial. They often learn and contribute best when given autonomy and the freedom to approach problems in their own unique ways. Understanding this could help educators identify and nurture innovative thinking rather than inadvertently suppressing it. In the workplace, embracing Otroverts could lead to more inclusive and effective organizational cultures. Instead of assuming that all employees need team building and group activities to be engaged, companies might create multiple pathways for contribution and belonging. Imagine workplaces that value authentic contribution over social performance, where advancement is based on actual competence and unique perspective rather than networking ability or group leadership skills. From an innovation standpoint, actively including Otrovert perspectives could accelerate creative problem-solving and breakthrough thinking. Groups that include Otrovert voices often arrive at more original and effective solutions because they're not constrained by group, consensus, or conventional approaches. This has particular implications for research and development fields, where original thinking and independence from established paradigms are crucial for breakthrough discoveries. In mental health, recognizing Otroversion as a normal personality variation rather than a social deficit could prevent misdiagnosis and inappropriate treatment. Many Otroverts have probably been incorrectly labeled as having social anxiety, attachment disorders, or other conditions when they're actually psychologically healthy individuals with a different social wiring. Perhaps most significantly, widespread understanding of Otroversion could contribute to a broader cultural shift toward valuing authenticity over conformity, individual contribution over group membership, and emotional independence over social dependence. In our increasingly connected global society, where social media and digital platforms often reward group thinking and tribal affiliation, Otroverts represent a crucial counterbalance. They model the possibility of being connected without being dependent, engaged without being conformist. The discovery of Otroversion as a distinct personality type isn't just an interesting psychological footnote. It's a paradigm shift that could help millions of people understand themselves better and contribute more authentically to the world around them. If you recognize yourself in these descriptions, embrace it. Your independence isn't selfishness, it's authenticity. Your reluctance to join groups isn't antisocial behavior, it's emotional integrity. Your different perspective isn't contrarianism, it's original thinking that the world desperately needs. For those of you who aren't Otroverts, understanding this personality type can improve your relationships with colleagues, friends, and family members who might be. Instead of pressuring them to join groups or conform to social expectations, appreciate the unique value they bring through their authenticity and independent thinking. Perhaps most importantly, the concept of Otroversion reminds us that human personality is far more complex and varied than we've traditionally assumed. There isn't one right way to be human, one correct approach to relationships, or one proper way to contribute to society. Dr. Kaminsky's research reveals that Otroverts aren't missing out on some essential human experience. They're pioneering a different way of being human. They show us that it's possible to be deeply connected without being dependent, highly contributory without being conformist, and genuinely fulfilled without needing group validation. So I want to leave you with this question. Could you be an Otrovert? And if you are, how might embracing this understanding transform your approach to relationships, work, and life? How might it give you permission to be more authentically yourself? The gift of not belonging isn't about isolation or disconnection. It's about the freedom to connect authentically, contribute originally, and live with integrity. In a world that often pressures conformity, Otroverts remind us that our differences aren't defects to be fixed. They're gifts to be celebrated. What do you think? Do you recognize yourself or someone you know in these descriptions? Share your thoughts in the comments below, and let's continue this fascinating conversation about the beautiful complexity of human personality. And if this video helped you understand yourself or others better, give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content exploring the fascinating world of human psychology and personal development. The journey of self-understanding never ends, and there's always more to discover about what makes us uniquely human.